we never discussed on who's opening up this one.
Yeah,
you are, I guess, now.
Always. Okay, everyone, welcome back. We are double digits today.
Yeah, this is our 10th.
We are our 10. Clap it up.
I feel like this is a milestone. Well, it is a milestone.
It is a milestone.
Yeah.
We are having a drink for that. So
we
cheers.
always are having a
Cheers,
drink,
cheers,
but we're all
Guys.
Cheers, my sweet.
She's like, it's the 10th episode. We're having a drink, but we drank for 7th, 8th, and 9th too.
Yeah, we did. We got a little
You
comfortable
have
and
to,
we're like,
you
you know
have
what?
to.
We're going to just bring out a little bit of a beverage. No more coffee
good.
or tea in the cups. Really excited today. We have Jen Sexsmith with us.
That's her real name.
It is.
It's
my
like
real
the coolest name.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And
Yeah.
I think you were wanting to actually ask her.
I'm like, what are
where
your
she got
parents
this
like?
name
But
from.
like, like they're probably so cool.
Yeah, well, I'm like named after my grandmother, so my full name is Virginia.
Okay.
Cooler.
Love that.
But, it was just too confusing to have too many Virginias. So
Yeah.
Okay.
always went by Jen.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So Jin's here. She can tell us about herself a little bit.
Take the lead.
I guess so. So I am a novelist. I'm from Tyne-Tenagamook territory. I grew up in Desirano. I live in Desirano now. I just put out a book called In the Hands of Men back
Amazing.
late May.
Tamara's read it. I've started to read it. You're also an artist.
Let's
with
do the
music.
list. You're
yeah.
an artist.
Yeah. You create music. You tour with your band.
Yes.
You're like a huge feminist. Would you consider yourself?
I would consider myself a feminist, yes, for
Okay,
sure.
I love that. You're a model.
Yes.
You do like everything creative. And now I just learned that you want to do a pottery class.
I really do want to do a pottery class, yeah.
I just did my first one today, so it went really well. So highly recommend. But yeah, we were talking about like how creative you are, and have you always been a writer? Have you obviously always been into music and modeling for a long time because we followed along with that? But
I was always like a big nerd. So like as a child, I don't know if I was like 7 or 8, but I stole my mom's like typewriter from the closet, and I would just like type little short stories, and then I would like.
Do you still have those short stories?
She probably does. She might. Maybe.
You'll have to find
and I would
them.
like illustrate them, and I'd like tie them all together with string, and like it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
So
do you write your music too?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So back then I started writing like lyrics and stuff too. I can't recommend those songs when I was 8.
Yeah.
Do you come from like a creative background?
Yes, I do. So like my dad was always like a songwriter. My mom always liked to write as well. A lot of like family members are musicians as well too.
Wow.
So you just fit right in. Like,
Yeah.
followed in
Brother.
family.
My brother's a
specific.
musician too.
Musician as
yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. I remember from working at the Queen's. You guys had that Christmas party or something the one time, and you were up singing, and your brother was up singing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's
I
right.
probably don't
see
remember
you.
that. But
So funny.
There's
It's
a
the
lot of
red wine.
involved.
It's the red wine.
But and I remember because we had mutual friends as well growing up.
Yes.
And you doing like modeling then and continuing doing modeling now, and so that's amazing. Good for you. Yay for empowerment.
Yay. And about your book.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover. So we're going to
I know.
do a little bit of a brief discussion on the book In the Hands of Men. So
Yeah.
if you could give us like a
Quick little synopsis.
little snap of what the book is
yes.
about.
So I always just say like it's anyone who loves female rage and desire, feminine rage, feminine desire, you'll love this book. Our lead character, she is, she's a bit of a serial killer. So
She is.
Just like casually.
casually.
We all have it in us,
We all have it in
secretly.
us. It's one of those things. So she's quite vengeful. She's went through trauma in her younger years, and she's kind of just making people pay, whilst also, looking for love.
Yeah. Finding a balance.
It's an interesting combo.
It's all,
Yeah, it's an interesting combo. So I've started to read through it. The first chapter especially is such a mind fuck because you're just trying to get to know these characters. And I do feel like you describe your characters so well. And there was a few things that came up because we obviously had a discussion about it, that I was like, I can picture this. I know these people. I can picture these scenarios. But also, too, because it is a little hot and heavy, and you're describing this sex scene. And in that, I'm like, the way that you're describing the man, I'm like, I felt like this.
Yeah.
I felt like this, and I never thought about it.
Right.
And because you are kind of conditioned as a woman to think like,
I'm submissive.
yeah,
You're dominant.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm kind of being objectified here, and I don't really have a voice in this situation.
and this is normal, and this is how it is to
Exactly.
be.
Yes.
Especially when I think back to like younger years of like kind of when you're learning.
Yeah, I feel like that's innocence, but it's just like now you think of it now and it's like there was much more to it than just that innocent like pull away your hand.
But also it's a confidence thing, I feel like, too. Like when you start to feel more secure with a partner. And I know in this scenario, this was like a one night stand, or this was like the first time. And for me, obviously, I've been in a relationship for like 13 years. So am I close enough to the mic? For the first time, like I'm like, oh yeah, like, you know, like I haven't experienced that, but reading it, I was like, this is really familiar. And I think that that's like super impressive how you can tell a story that way.
Thank you. And that's the thing, I always think that it's like I wish I would have had a novel like this when I was in high school, you know, as a teenager, because it's like we're experiencing these things and we don't have a voice for them, and we're like, oh, this is the norm. This is the norm. Exactly.
If a guy slaps my ass or grabs me by the hips, like, oh, okay, like
he likes me. Wow.
Likes me, you know? And it's just now you're
validation.
Like,
you feel good. I think too, when I read this, that it's like I was honked at. No one honks at me anymore, but
I'll honk at you.
Me too.
I was honked at more when I was like 16 or even younger, like walking down the street with my friends, like, than I have ever been as an adult. You know what I mean? And
I always talk about that it's like we almost had like the most male attention at like 13 to 16.
You're young and you're vulnerable.
You're so vulnerable. And it's terrifying as fuck.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that men, you know, and not all men, of course, but like certain men see that. They can tell a child from an adult.
Yeah.
And they want to give the attention to a child.
Yeah.
I remember I was like about 12 and there was this man who was trying to get me to go onto like his bus. We were like a car show and I was like, I'm 12.
Yeah.
And he started arguing with me about like, well, you don't look 12 and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm 12.
You're like, I'm telling the truth.
It's kind of like it goes back to like, you know, us wanting to like flaunt or show, you know, if we want to show something, like we're allowed to show something.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And I feel like too, like I remember
having to be judged by a male.
Yeah.
But they do like put you down. I remember I had this boyfriend in high school and I had one of those like over the shoulder tops. Like it was just like a t-shirt went over the shoulder and he called me a slut for wearing it. And it was just like the control that they have over like what you're wearing and like what you're doing and who you're talking to and like all this stuff. That's a lot. Do you feel like you write from like, have you been writing from personal experiences?
It's like a mixture. I think that definitely personal life inspires certain things and inspires fiction. Right. You know, I think that most people do, like they write what they know. Yeah. And so like, you know, I feel like I definitely write from experience and like, hey, I feel like I understand these things and I feel like I
take it a little further in your
you can take it further for sure.
Yeah.
Where do you think like your main character was inspired from?
See, I think that she's almost like, I like the idea that she's almost like the voice that we all have in our head, that like if we wanted to, if the things that we would want to say and the things like the internal thoughts that are constantly going that we're like, are you really like, you're being this cringy?
She has a lot of thought processing
she does.
And I'm like, girl.
Yeah. I feel you. I feel you.
Ditto.
You
but
know?
It gave a different perspective too. It gave it a different perspective. Like I mentioned, like I just think when you read it and you're like, hey, I feel that. I can understand that.
Yeah.
And it's not always how you consider that. So I have to ask this question. I'm jumping ahead too, because you do have a fiance. And I know that you mentioned as well that you identify as bisexual.
Yes. Yeah.
And I want to know, like, I need to know about your fiance. Like, I need to know after reading part of this book and then also I'm like,
we want to make it very clear. We love men. Like we
love men. We love men.
It's not like a
just
Barbie,
a few of you, but like not.
I think though too. Like I did say to Tamara, I'm like, why? If anybody has the chance to be with a woman, would they want to be with a man?
And I actually completely feel that though. And I always say to my fiance, you know, bless his tender heart. We love him. He's a good man. But I'm like, babe, you fucked this up. I'm never dating men again.
Yeah.
It's just, and honestly, and like, you know, no hate, but like, but it's, women have to do so much emotional labor for men.
Yes.
And even my sweet little baby that I have to do all the emotional labor for as well. And like, he gets it and like we communicate a lot, but there's still things that I'm like, women just inherently get it.
You know? I feel like it's like more of a partnership. I do say that too. I'm like, we're not getting divorced, but like I'm like, if I ever got divorced,
you're like, I'm gonna give it a go.
Yeah, like I don't know, like I'm like, who knows? But it is, so I always have like wondered about what your partner's like, because you do obviously share a lot of like passion projects as well. Like,
we do.
You take beautiful photos. I know that.
Well, you're both so creative. I feel like you guys just really meet.
That's the thing. Yeah. So he's like, he has his band Dead Wolf, which is like super like, 80s resurgence, heavy rock and roll. And then I find that he's more almost like outgoing in his kind of like, I don't know, like I feel like he's more outgoing than I am, where I am more just like, I'm a hermit. Like I'm at home writing.
I see you more outgoing.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know, which is, he would say the same thing. It's actually when we're out in public, he's like, I'm the one that's like a social butterfly, and he's more reserved. But I find like in career sense, his is more, I mean, like he's up on stage, rocking and rolling, and now I am like tucked into my office writing and like hermiting myself, you know? So
it's maybe just because you just have a different focus right now.
I think so. Yeah.
Right?
But it's, but I think that because we both really understand that creative outlet, and also the like how much time and effort you have to put in for sometimes not much money, so it's like, so there's other people that are like, oh well, we have jobs, and we're like, we have jobs too, just sometimes we have to really
really put it out there to get some in.
So
who do you feel like who do you feel like your book is for then? Like, who would you say your target audience is? Because I know you said that like you talked about this being a book for you in high school, like
and see, that's the thing that I almost think that like the target audience, I feel like there's many target. I don't know if that's cool to say, but like I think that like teenage girls need this book, even though it's gritty and you talk about common shit, like whatever, but it's like it is gritty, but like teenage girls, we talk about these things, we know these things, and at least it like gives them a voice. And also I think that like middle-aged women too will be like, oh, I haven't had a voice in my marriage in the last 7 years. This is kind of important to me. Or someone who has been sexually assaulted, who's looking back and being like, wow, I closed myself off, and I for years, and I haven't talked about this, and this is empowering me. So I do think that in a lot of ways it is for all women, but also I think that it's for men too. I think that if men read it and they see themselves in it and they're like, oh, do I come off?
Did I do that?
Have I been, even if they're not, because like I don't think that most men are bad at all. I think that there's a level of toxic masculinity that tells men like, oh, get her another drink, or things like that. And so it's like, have they ever been coercive? Or when they're trying to pick a girl up, are they being cringy? Are we in our heads
and
being
we
like,
know as women, we're like, that's really
yikes,
cringy. Like, sure, I'll take another drink. But
I have a lot of
getting my number.
Exactly, and we all know this. We can look at each other and share one glance and be like,
fucking God, can we ever like,
yikes,
or like, someone come. The best part is, I remember that stages we'd be dancing all in group, and like somebody would coming up behind you, and you're like,
safe,
like,
and we're like having to drag men through the bar, that they would hook onto your hips and you'd literally be dragging them.
I'm sorry, men, honestly.
That never happened to me.
You were
I was married at 23.
You were married, baby.
But for men to think like that is okay,
that someone's walking away and they're hunkering down.
But then for them to be like, women are crazy,
or
women are like actually it's like they're obsessed.
Yeah, I just actually
heard, are we obsessed, or are you like
obsessed with women and obsessed with getting laid?
Yes.
And like from even someone that doesn't like you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'm like, what is this going to do for you? This woman is trying to walk away from you. Yeah. Do you think the sex is going to be good? Because either you're into rape.
Yeah.
Or you just, I don't know. You hate women so much that you're like, well, she'll maybe she'll give in to me eventually. And it's like, that's not going to be good sex. And even if she does eventually give in to you.
Yeah. I feel like it's men though, like maybe like not necessarily even hating women, it's hating themselves. And I'm sure that like you feel like there's also a lot like there's still that stigma and not that part broken down where men can show like vulnerability or seek support or show like a softer side. And I know when we kind of like prep for this, we talked about like your spirit kind of having like that masculine feminine right, and that kind of all being intertwined. And so I think too, like it kind of goes both ways, and I can see both perspectives on the side too of seeing men also be going through trauma or also like being like victimized in ways too.
I think like a lot of other level-headed women can say, I think the sexiest thing about a man is one who, you know, are vulnerable, who don't always have to be resilient, who are like, you know, I'm not okay, or these are my emotions, and
that's the thing.
Emotions, and like, there's nothing hotter than that. Even like going to therapy, and I'm like, okay, like,
if like green flag, if I hear a man's going to therapy, okay, tell me more. Yeah, you know,
literally,
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Do you have plans for a second book?
I do. So I'm actually, initially I didn't, but I'm actually writing a sequel to it because I want to kind of see what the world would look like.
I haven't seen how it ended yet.
You know? So like, I'm not, no spoilers, but like the world is very shaken up at the end of this book. Okay. And so it's like, what would the world look like after? So I'm working on that. I'm also working like on a nonfiction about being Mohawk, so like, but white passing, obviously mixed. So like about finding Mohawk identity while being white passing,
like,
you know,
white privilege.
Yeah, and having so much white privilege. So it's kind of just like, that's just nonfiction, kind of mixture of like poetry, prose.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Wow. Incredible. We're like right in it already.
I know.
We're like real.
There's so much. Like, we're gonna have 3 episodes just because I feel like you do have.
I mentioned that to Joey. I was like, you know, we could put it in 2 parts. He's like, fuck that. Like Joe Rogan, he does like 5-hour episodes. I'm like, all right,
you just have a full. That's the thing. Let's be Joe Rogan. That's the thing. The men love Joe Rogan.
Hey man,
huge fan.
Hey, we're trying to appeal to our audience. We're trying to expand our audience here. You know.
Yeah. Hashtag get that like tag in there.
Yeah, Joe Rogan. I want Joe Rogan to have me on his podcast.
Oh, you guys would go.
You know what? This could be a stepping stone.
This could be a stepping stone.
You know, we're episode 10. You could be on episode, I don't even know.
Whatever,
5,012 on for his
the highest paying.
Yeah.
No, but it's so true. And I think like going back to like, I think there is a big shift, and I especially see it on social media about like women like not wanting to get married right now and wanting to stay single and wanting to travel, and then also like women using men for sex now. Do you know what I mean? Like,
which is the easiest thing for us to do.
Of course. It really is.
It really is. Like, it's one of those things that like, not that, you know,
on the way out.
Yeah.
It is. But I don't think that we don't really have the same the reason. Okay, let me think for a second. The reason that it's not as bad is that there's not slut shaming attached to men the same way there is to women. So it's like women can use men for sex, and like that's cool. Men love that. Yeah. But the woman then will be called a slut, where men can constantly use women for sex, and it's just like
have this person,
and they're like, oh, they're a player. Like they're so masculine. Like they're you know
they're amazing. Like, can I just walk in your shoes? When a lot of the time, if a man is like that, there's probably some insecurity that lies.
There could be some inner hurt. You know, you never know. You never know, because I do think that good sex is intimate sex.
Absolutely.
And so like whether that is like someone that you've known for a long time or not, but I do think there's a level of vulnerability there. That if anyone's using anyone, you're probably not having good sex.
No, not at all.
This is true. I love, this is kind of something that I wanted to throw in. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's a little like, it's a little juvenile, but I watch so much TV. Every episode I talk about like a new show on Netflix. I love. So I love like the Enola Holmes series.
I haven't watched it.
I love it, and honestly, you will love it.
Okay, it's on like my list to watch.
It's so good. The first one's like, the second one's definitely more mature, but I love it, and it is fully about like feminism, and like the first one is like about like women's rights to vote, and the second one is they changed like factory law, and it's based on a true story, and I love it. And there's a quote in that movie, and it is it's a woman talking to a man, and she was like, you wouldn't want to change a world that's suited for you.
Exactly.
And it's like, it's just, the whole movie is like that. And I love those movies so much. And it all is about like, so it's essentially like Sherlock Holmes' sister, and she's like living in the shadow, right? So anyways, it's so good. I definitely recommend that, and I think you'll love them. I will. But that quote, like, I knew I wanted to save that quote for this because it's so true. It's so true. Like, men don't want to embrace change that is a world that's suited for them.
Exactly. Why would they? Why would they change? You guys have all seen Barbie? Have you seen Barbie?
I have not, and I've been meaning to. I can't get tickets. But I saw like all this anti-men stuff, right?
And it honestly, it kind of goes with that same thing that you just said, that it's like, it really shows the patriarchy in that way. Like, why would you want to change it? You know,
it's like flip the script.
And it works for you. Yeah.
Wow. So women's rights and like feminism and, you know, women's rage now we're seeing a lot through like films and music.
Yeah.
Hey, T Swift.
Yeah.
All of those incredible things is a lot of learned behavior from previous generations, right? Like we were kind of talking about it, earlier, and like I sent you some things about, what is said about men's roles and the reflection of those myths and behavior patterns, and how when children are born, they're pretty much almost typed by their sex the day of.
Immediately, yes.
Yeah. And the more I thought of it, I was like, learned behavior. Oh my God.
Completely, right? It's like we live in like a very heteronormative world.
Yeah.
And anyone outside that box is like not accepted. They have to work so much harder to be accepted.
And to prove and to fight for like what or who I may be.
Yeah. And just
absolutely.
to like get basic
But
decency
why?
and respect. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
And that's why I always like go back to like indigenous beliefs of like every single child born has a purpose.
Yes.
A purpose and that they are the way they are and they're born that way.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
And how beautiful is that?
That's wonderful.
A purpose.
That
just gave me chills.
Yeah. I think too, like just I'm gonna go here too because we've had this topic already, but I think about like the trans community and like the drag community. Like I'm a huge like RuPaul's fan. Love, yeah. Huge fan. And so I follow a lot of like queens on Instagram and things like that. And I'm like seeing, these rallies and seeing these movements and all these things and like just seeing people to be like fighting for acceptance. And I know people are so opinionated on it. And we've talked about this a little bit, and maybe I'm a bit of a pushover because she was like, Jen's so opinionated. And I was like, I feel like, no, in the great way. I feel like I have my opinions on things, but I also feel like I don't have strong opinions on a lot of things because I feel like I'm like, just who cares?
Live and
like,
let live. And actually that's kind of more the way I am. I'm like, live and let live. Like if it, let people love who they want to love, let people be who they want to be. And like, what is it actually, is it our business? You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's like, I don't understand people who are homophobic, transphobic. Like it just doesn't actually make sense to me.
Just like live your life. And I think too, honestly, like I have an opinion that I feel like a lot of people who have like strong hatred or insecurities about it are struggling with that internally themselves.
Absolutely.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
Absolutely.
So I can't say for sure, but yeah, I definitely think that to me, I'm like, there has to be like a correlation there because maybe they're seeing themselves or something like that.
And that's like, and at that point I'm like, do you want to be that cliche that you're like a gay basher or something and then you're secretly gay? Like, do you want to be that kind of cliche?
But it's
like,
sad though too
because they're missing out on
their story, and that's the thing,
and their
like,
truth, right?
Yeah, and then it's just, but then I always go back to parenting and everything, and I'm like, what messages were they told? What kind of shame were they marinated in?
Core beliefs for a child is taught. Well, core beliefs that for us are taught at a very young age.
Yeah, it's like we have all of our beliefs by like 5.
Already.
Yeah, like the foundation.
Is that what it is?
Foundational
years?
Yeah. That's what my therapist said to me.
Formative
years.
Like
she was like, list out some core beliefs that you learned at a young age, and I'm like, holy fucking God.
What are some of
yours? If I'm vulnerable, I'm weak.
Oof, that's a big one.
And I have a very hard time being vulnerable. I'm very resilient, almost too resilient to the point where it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And when I am vulnerable, it's like, look out.
I feel like that's a really hard question.
It's almost like volatilely vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like I am the same way that it's like if I'm going to be vulnerable, it's like all.
If I fell, it was like, get up, walk it off.
Yeah.
But I can't walk it off. And
no,
the perfect example, sorry, Dad, was, I busted my ankle last year and I was walking around on it for 7 months with a fracture in it because it's okay, it'll heal. I walk on it.
I feel like that's partially though because she's stubborn.
I am stubborn, but that was one of it.
But learned behavior,
right? Does stubbornness formed from being told never be vulnerable because then you're weak?
Yeah.
And then so everyone else looks at it as stubborn, but it's like, well, I'm just never showing weakness.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And Ryan, my boyfriend, he's really good at catching me when I'm like, oh, I know that. He's like, but do you? And I'm like,
yeah,
I actually don't.
No.
Now I'm vulnerable.
Yeah.
Teach me. But I do have a really hard time being like that. So yeah, I could definitely see that. It's definitely a lot of parental, growing up, what they grew up in.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I think too, and because like, especially to your book talks about a lot of trauma, I think like going through trauma, it is the only opportunity sometimes to change those views.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like the great shaper.
Yeah. Because I think like
your DNA is not the same after you've gone through trauma, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's like the book always talks about like the before and the after. And I think in that sense, it's, you know, in the book sense, it's really talking about sexual abuse, but I think that's any trauma.
Yeah.
There's the before, there's who you were before, and then there's who you are after.
Well, and there's during the war with yourself.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of like the whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're just surviving during, and then there's the after, who it shapes you
like,
into.
Who the fuck am I now? I ask myself that daily. Who the fuck am I now?
Yeah, but I feel like that's always, I feel like we'll never be able to answer that question.
No.
We're always growing,
We're
you know?
growing. We're
I feel like it's more important that you can ask yourself, like, am I happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I happy
You
in this
know?
moment? And I think that's what really matters most. Am I at peace? Am I happy?
Yeah.
Because really, like, who the fuck's going to care? At the end of the
And
day?
do I like myself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do I like myself is such a
And
good
I
question.
haven't.
And like the am I at peace with myself? And like not in a way of like, oh, well, I don't like this or I don't like this or like,
Yeah.
I don't mean it all surface based. I mean more just like, do I think I'm a good
I
person?
hate that question because sometimes I feel like that changes. Like I was thinking about this
Yeah,
the
it
other
does.
day, and I wonder if you feel this way too, being creative, that you ever like struggle with imposter syndrome.
Oh, majorly.
Yeah.
Majorly.
What do you mean by that?
Like just feeling like sometimes when I think about, do I like myself, I feel like the person that I was in high school or the person I was when I was a teenager, that when I was learning things and growing, is so different from the person I am now. And I'm so consciously different. So consciously different that when I'm with people, I try to be more present. I try to check in more. I try to, I feel like I'm always conscious and thinking about being that better person. And sometimes I'm like, am I deep down like a bad person? Do you know what I mean?
If I'm consciously trying to be good, am I actually bad? But it's like, no, you're self-aware. You're self-aware.
Self-aware.
Like, but I'm like, but like, you know, am I like deep down like evil? Like, am I, you know what I mean? Or like,
you do talk about that a lot.
I know, because I think like there is this little part of me that's like,
But I think
all have
that
a
we're
little
all
label.
multifaceted. I think
Yeah.
that we all have some things that we're like, oh, like there's just this little
that I'm
little
like,
voice
there's
sometimes
this,
that's like
one
maybe a little
thing.
mean, whatever.
This is one
Just-
little thing.
Sit down.
But in
Yeah.
terms of like, in terms of imposter syndrome, like when I think about imposter syndrome, I especially relate to like with me for business.
Yeah.
I think about business a lot, and I think like, you know, am I really like putting out something genuine? Am I showing my genuine self? And I try really hard to do that as well. He was saying we're at 30.
Drink.
So I think about that a lot in business, and I have really tried to like show up authentically,
Yes.
and you do,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and you're really
I'm
authentic.
out there all.
And
in
that's the thing.
all-
You all do show up so authentically, and it's
Yeah.
like why I love you.
Oh,
both
we
so
love
much,
our
you
best.
know?
We do our
We love
best,
you.
you know.
You know what, Katie? I read something the other day that really made me think of you, and I meant to message you, and maybe I did. I can't remember, but I was listening
probably
to a
didn't read it
podcast,
either.
and it's like every 5
love genre.
years, you're such a different person. Yeah, you probably didn't fucking
Yeah,
read it. 'Cause
yeah.
It's inspirational as heck. But every 5 years, you're a different person. Like, people really don't know you
That's not
unless
mine.
they, thank you, Joey. Unless they,
Saint.
you know, have met you now.
Men.
I'm being
So dominant,
I'm being
so
really
dominant.
vulnerable right now.
Sorry. Back
Oh, I
to
can't
you.
red wine or I'll fight.
Red
I
wine.
just want a little.
No
Sorry,
red
guys,
wine
we're
for
just
me
gonna
either.
have
or I'll
a minute
throw up.
break here. No, we're just filling up on the drinks. But like I was saying, Katie, if people, if they had met you since high school, they wouldn't know who you are today.
No.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, you're always learning,
That's
you're always
a
growing.
good
you're,
thing, right?
Yeah,
Because like
if
who
you are going in those right directions.
who
and-
can say like I was fully formed and who I was going to be at 16? And
Oh my
I think the people
gosh.
that can say that, that's sad.
Yeah.
Because it's like if they haven't changed since 16, 17 years old, like they probably need to.
And now I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know what, Mom, you were so right. Or,
Yeah.
but I had to learn it on my own.
yeah,
and I'm
that's-
just like, fuck, damn it.
those
you were
life
so
lessons
right. Or
are hard,
Those
yeah.
times that we went through with our parents.
I know.
One time we took the car. And now I think if Owen and Luke ever did that,
Yeah.
could you imagine?
I mean, it sounds fun. And they
they
probably
will.
will do that, though. That's the thing.
I know.
Honestly,
Right?
I know.
no, they won't. They're angels.
They're angels.
They all do no
Yeah,
wrong.
angels.
But that's what you're talking about too. And I said this before we sat down, is like I feel like my only role as a parent, and part of it is like who I was in like
Thank you, Joey.
in high school and stuff like that is teaching them to be kind.
Yes.
That's all you can do. Just be a
Because
good
also
person.
too, like do you ever see that meme that's like it is the parent, there's like a little boy crying,
Yeah.
and it's the parent and the tongue's coming
Yeah.
through,
Yeah.
And like we love our parents, but like it totally is. That's learned behavior. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like
that kid gets bullied at home all the time, and now he's going out into the world
bully,
and he's
of course
bullying.
he is.
You hear bullying or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, or you hear the judgment. And so I definitely do agree that that's learned behavior too. And I think that there's a lot of things you have to like unlearn, I guess, and I feel like that happens through trauma.
I love
For me,
watching
it did.
like healthy little ones like in their element, because they're just so like vulnerable to whatever and everyone, and just want to love
they're
and
sponges.
accept,
and they're so
you know,
pure, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, like they would never think a bad word about a bad thought about anyone. They'd never say bad word about anyone. That is so learned, such learned behavior. And then you see it when it's like, you know, 7, 8 years old. It's like, where is this coming from? You know, like, who is
at the background?
Scary how fast, as a parent, though, it's scary how fast. Like, Luke called my mom old the other day, and she was very upset. And then he's been running around saying fuck ass when he gets pissed.
Which is pretty funny. I would have a hard time not laughing.
I know. I'm like, don't say that at daycare. Like, I don't care.
You know he's saying it at daycare.
I know. And then I'm like, shit. And like, I feel like, I'm like, what does daycare think of me? Because like literally yesterday, he went to school in like daycare in 2 different shoes.
Okay, yeah.
I'm always forgetting their water bottles. One time I sent them with
They're dehydrated.
And they were like, you're not allowed to send this. And I was like, I forgot their water bottles. I just stopped it. Like,
I was looking for the fucking dog.
I never put together.
It was in the bedroom the whole time.
Yeah, the dog.
God.
I feel like every episode too, I'm like, if anyone wants a dog. Joe gets mad, but
you're like,
still here.
His shoes, they fit his feet. He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine.
So I guess, Jen, we've kind of laid out like, you know, how when we're born into this world, but then like, you know, how we're constantly like evolving, and as we should. What do you think a woman's place is in this world?
I think it's whatever she fucking wants it to be.
You know
what I mean? Like
amen.
Yeah, like whatever she wants.
Yes.
Joe's over there like.
Honestly, I'm 30 now, and what I've been through, I feel more confident in my body and myself and my purpose than I've ever. Good. Even though I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
You went through.
I feel more who I am and what I am, and that I am. Like, I had a boyfriend fucking 6 years ago tell me, you can't wear that skirt. Why are you wearing red lipstick?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I'll fucking wear that red lipstick anytime I want. So every time I put that red lipstick
you feel
on,
empowered,
I
right?
feel it, and then I'm like, fuck you.
Right.
And it's true.
It's true. Yeah. Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, you got yourself through everything. And like, honestly.
And you always
babes,
do. And you, like, we've all... Women are fucking powerful.
Yeah.
So I love that answer.
And I think it comes with age. I always have told myself, and you know that I've always said this. I said this since my 20s, that I always felt like 30s were going to be like my favorite years, that I was going
to lit, babe.
have it all figured out at 30. And I do feel like that. I just turned 30 this
30.
year, and I'm like, I love it. And I just feel like maybe 40 will be even better, but like
that's the thing, right? It's like all of a sudden we know who we are, and I find that like so much of our, you know, teenage years, 20s is like being
discovering and
everyone else wants us to be
partying,
social. Even like the idea of like marriage and stuff. Sometimes it's like, okay, was there societal pressure on that? Was there familiar pressure? You know, and then it's like all of a sudden you hit 30 and you're like, oh, okay, like I know who I am. At that point you have trauma chalked up, and it's like, okay, I've gotten myself through this. I know that I'm resilient. I have so much confidence. I've had to be. You also know that like some people won't have your back, you know that too. So you've had to be there for yourself, where I think there's a naivety when you're younger that you're like
why don't you like me?
Why don't you like me? Why aren't you here for me?
I still struggle with that a lot. I still struggle with like
I have to. In a sense,
wanting to be liked and wanting to be accepted.
I think that's
maybe 40. Maybe 40 will be the
hopefully
50, 60.
Counting
bring
on 40.
It on.
Think about when you're a girl and you see like the 60-year-old, 70-year-old women at the pool. They're sitting chatting in the change room. Tits out.
Yeah.
They don't.
I know. Sometimes when I'm in there, I'm like, am I like, is this okay? Like sometimes I do it just to like make people think that I like am okay. Like, you know, like I'm like this.
Lean into it. It's one of those things that's like, I've always like, I remember being in swimming lessons when I was like 6 and being like, these women know what's up.
Yeah.
Like they are not even, I haven't even seen them get in the pool. I think they just come here, they strip and they chat with their friends for 3 hours.
That's like, honestly,
stranger, hey, what's up?
Tamara's always fucking butt naked.
Oh, I walk around my house naked.
She
all the time.
is butt naked all the time. Yes.
She is. Blinds are down.
I have no. Honestly, I read this thing too that says if you don't know who the naked neighbor is, it's you.
I know. I saw that and I
me.
felt really seen. Yeah.
It's me.
I
for
hate
sure.
clothes.
I don't
hate clothes.
I know. Our neighbor just saw my tits the other day. There was
his lucky day, you know.
It was Joe's grandma's partner, so a little awkward. But there was a bunny. Our cat had got a little baby bunny, so I was trying to save it.
Yeah.
Oh, your tits were out?
Were you
outside with your boobs out?
No, not when the bunny. Okay, so then I covered I put it in a basket and I covered it because we were going to take it to Sandy Pines. I covered it with a towel and then my kids went out and Owen took the towel off. So I was like, shit, the cat's going to get it.
Right.
I was getting ready.
You were
so
being
I
a
run
hero.
out. I know. I was literally saving a life.
Yeah.
And I ran
Saving
out and then I turned and I had grabbed. Did I have the cat or did I have Owen? I had something. And I turned and I'm like, oh my God. And I like just cover up and I like scurry into the house and I'm like, we're not going to talk about that, but it happened.
Did you save the bunny?
No, I let him go. I know. And then they called me back and they're like, he should have came in, but I think he's fine. There's a million bunnies around
That's
here.
the thing. He's fine.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. I do want to ask you, like having your Indigenous background.
Yes.
Do you feel like, how do you feel like that's like change your spirituality? And like, do you feel like that makes you more connected with yourself? And like, how do you partake in your culture?
Yeah, I think for sure it makes me more spiritual. My favorite thing about being Mohawk is like finding meaning in everything.
Right.
You know, that like honestly believing that like each baby's born with a purpose, that like so then in turn I would have a purpose.
Right.
Everyone I meet has a purpose. Honestly, just like you'll see like
A leaf on a tree.
A leaf on a tree, a hawk go over the 401. You're like, oh, what is this? This is like maybe a warning
This
to slow down or
means-
something. Or like anything, you find meaning in everything.
Yeah.
And that kind of just like fills up my soul, you know. I love it. And so it's that's my favorite thing.
When I lost Gwendolyn, I don't know if you know this, but my stepdad is Mohawk. And he a lot of family, I'm close to a lot of his family, and they have, you know, the beliefs of, I remember when Gwendolyn passing away and we were all there in the room, you know, mourning and crying, and he wouldn't come in. And he was like, you know, this is, I don't need to be in there. That's not how I remember her.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And even at the services, like your typical, you know, funerals and whatnot, he was her grandfather, but he was very much outside of everything. But he would go home and he would, you know, resonate by lighting a fire or, you know, saying, you know, there was a purpose or there was something just to make me feel a little bit more grounded.
Exactly.
You know, and that, you know, there's a spirit of some sort. And I've been to like different funerals or what you may call them when an Indigenous person passes away, and they're much more like from the soul,
and almost celebrating that life and knowing that spirit's still with you.
Then
you know?
reading out of a Bible.
Yeah.
These verses that may or may not have any fucking
There's more of a connection, right?
reason. And that's just it. And I found it so moving. And you know, he quite often like still sends me stories and stuff about so and so losing a child, but knowing that they're leading, right?
Yeah.
So
I think too,
I
because
find
like
it
you're more in touch with your surroundings. You're more in touch with nature.
Goodness.
You're more in touch.
That's
with
what being
earth,
Indigenous
right?
is you,
right? And
you, it's the land,
and it's the land. And I also just think it's like what we all need as humans. You know, I think that like colonization kind of like that was like a lost thing, but like I think that like we all need that just as individuals, as humans, to feel grounded and to feel like there is everything has a meaning and to like look at life instead of like, oh, this was a annoying day or whatever, even this was a traumatic day. It's like, hey, well, what was the lesson there? Looking at the bigger picture,
a reason, season in a lifetime.
Do you feel like, do you consider yourself superstitious?
Very, very.
I am so superstitious. So superstitious.
I'm so superstitious.
Enlighten me.
When you mentioned about the hawk, if you see two hawks together, it's supposed to be good luck, right? And I'm always like, black cat, like lick your finger, stamp your thumb, like
What did I drop the other day? And you're like, wait.
Oh, you dropped a knife, and I was like, no, you have to catch it and throw it up in the air.
Yeah.
I'm so superstitious.
Yes.
really superstitious.
Okay, you are more superstitious than I am. Like I need
my
to
mom
hear some of these things.
My mom was that way too. Yeah. So if you drop a fork, no, if you drop a spoon, it's a woman. If you drop a spoon, and then if you drop a fork, it's a child, and then a knife, it's a man. Unexpected visitor will come to you.
Really?
And I'm saying,
and like alive or
I don't know,
spirit or
I don't know.
Have you ever had like an unsuspected?
I don't know because I've always thrown
unexpected
them up in the air.
visitor. Yeah.
So no, it works. I thought you were gonna be like, have you ever had a spirit visit you? And I was like, yes,
I
have.
Yes, I have.
Okay, tell me everything.
Okay, well, I'm really excited for our next episode. So let this just be like a tiny little hint,
a teaser
about what might be coming for our next episode.
Don't give too much.
Nope, that's it. But so I've had two experiences with it, and I am also 1% Native American, Indigenous. Just
What
1%.
nation are you? Mohawk?
No, I do have family that live on the reserve though.
Okay,
my family is. Do you know Michael Green? He's like flamingly gay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's like everybody knows
love
him.
Love
that's
him.
my cousin.
Yeah.
So love him too. So anyway, so yeah, I'm related to the Greens.
Is he the photographer?
Yeah.
Oh,
and he works at
he's
McDonald's.
lovely.
Yeah.
He's lovely.
Oh my God,
yes.
So that's my cousin.
Yeah.
And then Sean and a few others. But anyway, so because I did my ancestry DNA. But so my dad came here from England.
Right.
So like that's all I know. But
yeah,
I need to dive a little deeper. But okay, so when I was really, really little, I was like maybe 4, and I was outside. My mom was watching me on the swing. I was talking to myself.
Oh, I love this.
I've told this story quite a bit. And I came in and I said to my mom, I said, Graham had a motorcycle. My dad's mom had a motorcycle. So my mom's parents were living. My dad's parents had passed away. I never met them.
Yeah.
And my dad has always said that I have I'm so much like my grandmother, like so much like his
very
mom.
in tune.
Yeah.
And so I had said this, and then my mom's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then my dad came home, and my mom had told him this, and he's like, she did. Like, no one knew that. She did. My mom didn't know that. And I'm like, okay, so sketchy.
Wild. Yeah.
But then, so the other day, like, honestly, like 2 months ago, I'm laying on the couch, and I'm like, I know that I have this, like, power. And I think you just have to, like, zone in. I definitely think that I have this.
I think a lot
you
of
have a
people block
gift.
it
You have
out.
a gift.
I'm gifted. Like I totally like.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I have this connection, especially to my grandmother, maybe.
Yeah.
And if that's all, then that's all. But so I'm laying on the couch and I'm like, how can I be psychic? Like be psychic.
Yeah.
Like,
be psychic. Be psychic. This is gonna happen.
My
Yeah.
first thought though, all I could think about was buttons. Like buttons.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that's so weird. Like that was my first thought. That was that. So the next day I saw my dad and I was like, is there any connection with like grandma and buttons? And he was like, yeah, her parents, they owned a button factory in Germany.
What?
Right? Like, what? I know.
Are you kidding me?
I know. Like,
Okay.
how would I know that? Like, what the most random thing. So I'm like,
I love this though.
I'm obviously psychic, and I'm gonna leave it at that. And
But now you
where
have,
it
you have to
goes.
train it.
I'll
now
let
you have
you
to
know
train
when I'm
it.
taking
You know.
bookings.
Open up your senses.
I'll let you
Open
know
up
when I'm
those
taking books.
gates.
Because that's the thing they always say, like, you know, we use such a small part of our brains. I think that,
You
like,
do.
if we used more of our brains, we would be probably telepathic. We'd be more psychic. We'd be in tune with the
yes. 'Cause
spiritual
we used to be
world.
at one point.
Everything.
I think that
right?
I had telepathy with my brother when we were really little.
A lot of twins say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twinsies.
Twinsies.
Do you okay, so so you were just saying so I also heard there's so much sound that we can't hear too, right? What is wrong with her?
She's probably hearing sounds we can't hear.
Oh, stop shaking the camera, sorry.
Oh.
So like even like of plants and flowers and things like that, right? And they say like if you like cut a flower it screams, like stuff,
What?
right?
I've heard that, yeah.
You haven't heard that?
I cut flowers all the time.
Well, they are screaming in pain.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is
You
horrible.
are a monster.
No, I'm a huge
There's-
empath.
Yeah, you're like, I can't. Yeah,
like,
you're like, no
even
more,
now,
no more flowers
more so
in my
than
house, I
ever.
guess.
One
Yeah.
thing
Fuck,
that
I'm
I
gonna
have
start crying now.
started to do because I feel like this is great. Luke says that he loves me so much and that he picks me flowers all the time. And he says he picks me flowers because he loves me. And now I've started saving every flower in a book. I've pressed all the flowers that he's given me.
Very, very
I know.
cute.
I know. And then I can be like, this is how much you love me. It's all these flowers.
That's adorable.
It's all these flowers.
That's adorable.
Oh my gosh. So speaking to your Indigenous background,
Yes.
and obviously we were talking about feminism and all these things. I know that there's been a lot in the news and a lot of like political tension and a lot of movements in terms of, you know, like like what's happening, especially with women in the communities, that women are going missing, and the residential schools and things like that. Like,
right?
So I just want to tell somebody, like, I was doing quite a bit of research before. And like I had mentioned, my stepfather was in he was part of the 60s
Scoop.
That's it. And for people that don't know, that are listening, it's his mother was in residential schools, something that she never really talked about even to the day she passed away, but also had a lot of effect on him and the way he was raised. And he was part of the 60s Scoop, where, you know, white men would come in and quite literally, you know, scoop up these indigenous children and take them essentially to plantations and work them. So he worked on a farm for a lot of years, and he didn't receive schooling. He didn't receive, you know, proper nurture. You know, he really didn't know his family until later on in life, and that's quite sad. So it fuels my fucking blood, and I'm sure it does yours too. When people are like, oh, it's fine now, they're closed, they were closed in 1990s or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
1996, mind you, right?
Pardon.
It's
like I was born in
our
93.
lifetime.
There's still people
15 years
living.
ago.
There's still people living that have been through these horrible fucking times.
And supposed to say like there's schools, right? That we would put trust. Like, you hear the word school, and it, you know, it instills a feeling of trust and safety. And it's like, no, these were like prisons,
essentially,
and, you know,
stripping them of those beliefs.
Yeah, their entire identities. Also, like, not to mention all the physical and sexual abuse that happened that then became intergenerational trauma too, right?
So now we have, it's kind of the iceberg effect. You know, you see the tip, but now there's the core of all of those things, and it correlates into further generations. So there's still a lot of people that are suffering.
That's the thing,
immensely.
Right? Yeah, you wouldn't be able to meet any indigenous person that doesn't have a relative that was in either 60 Scoop, residential school, something, and then had all that trickle down.
That would feel.
Do you have family that's been affected through that?
Yeah. So my great grandfather would have been in residential school. He would have tried to escape multiple times, and then was like found, dragged back. You know, was abused there and everything. And so it's just one of those things. And it's like, you don't even
think it's out of the norm.
No. And like, that's the thing. And so like, even when like the bodies and everything were found, I feel like most indigenous people knew there were bodies at the schools.
Of course they did.
Because we had been raised having relatives that had went to these schools and said like, oh no, kids died and they were buried on the premises, right? So it wasn't exactly news. Maybe the amount was, because it wasn't in our lifetime.
Yeah, right.
But it was like, no, we've always known about all of the abuse and everything. And then to hear that some people were like, oh, they don't even believe that there was abuse happening at the schools is just...
I think it's just wild to me too that, like, I mean, maybe this is too much. I'm not like a super... I pay attention and I follow some news. I don't like to be too political, but
sometimes it's tough though, right? Because it's like there also is so much news being bombarded at us at all times, and so I do think that there are people almost have to like pick and choose their issues, because otherwise it's like, what can you do?
But the way I think about it, like when I hear it explained to me, like I know you say school, like when I hear you say school, I can totally understand that, but like the outcome feels very much like, you know, what like the Jewish population went through.
Exactly.
Right.
But like in Germany and everything, they like to talk about the Holocaust. So like their people never forget what they did. And also, you know what I mean? What happened.
Did we even learn that in history class?
And that's the thing. No, in Canada, there was not proper Indigenous studies.
Right.
That if you weren't Indigenous, you just didn't learn these things unless you had
relatives
or friends of the family that told you. People were completely ignorant, and that is what can make history repeat itself.
Right.
Do you know what I remember a lot in high school? And this is horrible to say, but Indigenous people were people that blocked the train tracks.
Yeah. You got that a lot. Or sold bag darts. Or you know.
Tarts, yeah. Or, you know, who wore camo with long hair and carried rifles. Like, it was things like that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what a misconception.
Villainized, you know.
Yeah, we're not even taught any of this shit.
Yeah.
We should be taught at a young age. Like, maybe, you know, that obviously, like, taught appropriately.
What a weird sound
but
you just made.
That was like the grudge,
But, yeah, like, it mind boggles. Like, are they being taught now more about it?
I think they are. I think the school systems are changing. I mean,
they've got it now.
They have to, right? And then even, like, just the thought of, like, yeah, well, if railroads are built through people's land, you know,
what's in
should
there?
should they be allowed to block the railroads, right? And then I think we really saw that with the whole like KKK convoy kind of stuff, right? That it was like all of a sudden it's like, well, this I'm blocking this, and it's like, oh, the people that were so against Indigenous people blocking you know, all of a sudden they're all about it, and I was like, oh, okay,
absolutely.
So it's actually,
because
you know,
everyone's agenda, right? It's the same thing. You don't want to change things that are suited for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's
and so
really...
that really showed. And I mean, you even see it, you know, when like, you know, Roe v. Wade was overturned too. It was all of a sudden, and the thing that always really bugged me over COVID, people saying when they were asked to wear masks, they say "my body, my choice," which started from women saying "my body, my choice" for the right to have an abortion. And it's like, oh, men are twisting that and now saying "my body, my choice." Like,
I'm allowed to wear or I'm not. I don't want to get the
right.
vaccine.
But they're not seeing the full picture of like, but you would be against a woman who says that when they're literally talking about carrying a pregnancy or not, you know? And it's like
hard. So how, like, Jen, how would you explain feminism to like a male?
I would say that it's equal rights and opportunities across the board, whatever that looks like, you know, like whether it be career, whether it be like dating, sex, everything.
Absolutely.
We should all be able to do what men can do without judgment, without, you know.
Why is there, still fucking drives me nuts, why is there an NHL team for men but not women? Like, I'm sorry, I like women like the hockey better than I do men.
I just read I think
what the
it was either basketball or soccer, but women are starting to get paid now the same as like the men.
As they should.
Right?
Sorry, so
but
it's
like,
good news though, right? Like it's good news, and it feels like there's growth and progress in that direction. So going back to like your Indigenous culture, like obviously you have family that like, are you familiar with the language? Like, do you?
Yeah. So like I am. That's the thing. So I was actually supposed to go to immersion school in Six Nations last September.
Okay.
And then I got the book deal, and it was like, okay, now I'm in crunch time to finish my novel. And so it was one of those things that's like I've been working on. I wanted to be a writer for my whole life, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school later. But I had been studying online for years.
I know Hanyaksa.
Hanyoksa, baby, yeah.
Right?
Hurry up.
Speak to me, please.
That's all I know. I think. And is it Kainoro? I love you. What's I love you?
Gunarunkwa.
Okay.
Gunarunkwa.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
What are the other ones? Yeah.
Ganingeha is like it's a gorgeous language. It's one of those things that I really want to be fluent in.
Yeah.
And
teach others. That's the thing. I actually really want to start something on my res that's like even just like a women's class too. That like, you know, people can bring their kids to. They can have that. It's not like, because so often it's full immersion that it's like, okay, it's full-time school, and then it's like, hey, like can people take the time out of their lives?
No one has any time,
you know. And so
that's
it's like
how I feel about ASL right now, because I'm trying to learn ASL.
And it's like, hey, where do you find the time? You know. And so like even to have, I think that like even learning a couple things, a couple words,
but
you
it's
know,
so important,
it's still progress.
You know, they'll be like, oh, I know that word. Okay, well, do you know this word? Or like just bounce off.
And being able to converse eventually. So like I know that the program is actually coming to Tyne this year, I think. Cool. And so like, yeah, I want to get in maybe next year. I don't know, but like,
that's really
good
cool.
for you.
That is so, honestly, I'm like, how do you do it all? Like, you have a lot going on.
I'm like really overwhelmed all the time, but it's one of those
things. Make it work.
I honestly believe that like without language, we don't have culture, because I think that like you have to have language to be able to think, like to think Mohawk. You know, there's things that can't even be said in English. And so it's like, I want to be able to think Mohawk. And I have friends that have went through immersion and they can dream in Mohawk and everything. I'm like, that to me is so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So tell us how it is being Indigenous, but also having the white privilege.
So often I'm like a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
So I've like heard some very, 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 very racist shit before.
And them not knowing.
So you look at me, I look very, very European. You know what I mean? Like when I'm blonde, people will come up to me and speak Russian to me and argue with me that I'm not Russian. And why don't you know your language?
I can see it. Yeah.
Right?
I can see
like, I get Czech, I get Russian a lot, and I'm neither. But it's one of those things that it's like, so that.
Is it on your mother or your dad's side?
My mother's side is Mohawk. Okay. Yeah. And so it's one of those things. But even like my great grandfather, who was full blooded Mohawk, was he had the same skin color that I do.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things I always have this
often.
feeling of being like, oh, well, I'm not dark enough or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, my full-blooded grandfather was white. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know where that really comes from. This imposter syndrome, honestly,
Yeah.
circling back, you know?
Yes, right. There's
Wow,
this
where
one
do I
girl.
fit?
She's on TikTok and she's on Instagram and things. She is biracial and she's got like curly hair.
Yeah.
She was the model on Deal or No Deal.
Okay.
Have you seen her? She's got like curly hair. She's beautiful. She's really good at twerking.
I don't know. I'm like,
I'll have to show you
I'm
her.
thinking like Amanda, who
But
also went to
people
Selling
will
Sunset. Did you watch Selling
constantly-
Sunset?
Love Selling Sunset. But
Do you know that Amanda was a Deal or No Deal girl?
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that at
I learned
all.
something new today.
But people will comment
Many
on her
things.
posts all the time, and she'll make posts about it, like saying like, "Oh, like you don't look black, you don't look black."
She's
she'll,
like, "I'm
post
mixed, like, I
she'll be
literally am
"Here's my
mixed."
dad,
Yeah.
like, here's
Why do
my-"
I have to prove to you?
Yeah.
right. And it's almost like you have to like fight to just say I identify.
I identify as
this
this,
is who I
you know?
am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, unfortunately, there are weird people that pretend that they are something that they're not, and that ruins it for everyone else.
Yes.
But it's like most people should not have to be like, let me pull up, let me, you know.
I'm like,
Identity
here, I'm
track.
1% Indigenous. Like,
yeah, like Ancestry.com, baby.
Can I have that back?
Honestly, though, I feel like Mohawk, because I do have family that live on their reserve, and because we grew up in such a small area, it's so welcoming. Like
That's
it's
the thing.
so
Yeah.
welcoming because I've had people say like, come to a powwow, like come experience.
And
This
that is-
weekend, babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
as an Indigenous community, you don't have to let
You don't have, no.
anybody on your reserve.
No, you don't have to. And so like
And a lot
Tyndonega,
of places don't.
a lot of places don't. Tyndonega is a very, very welcoming reserve.
Yeah.
And also, I like to always point out that like Mohawks were an adoptive society.
right.
Yeah.
So there were people that came over that then were adopted and became Mohawk. There was no such thing as blood quantum. That is something that's created from the Indian Act by the government. And so it's like there would have been people within their communities that would have been from wherever, like from England, and
Right.
would have been then considered Mohawk because
love
they
that.
adopted
Yeah.
the belief
Okay.
and the
why can't
culture
we
and the
all?
culture.
But
And that to me is beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, I love that because it's just like, and we're fortunate, obviously, because I do feel like, like I have so many friends that are Mohawk and live
Yeah.
on the reserve and live in
Yeah.
Toronto and things like that. And I just
Exactly.
think it's great because we don't like. Not everyone has that opportunity to be exposed to that other culture, and
Yeah.
it's right here. And I think it's so
It's
wonderful.
such a beautiful. It's brought me. I know with losing Gwendolyn, it's brought me a lot of peace.
Yeah.
Just feeling like the land and
Exactly.
we can't create or
Being, like,
destroy
feeling a little bit
energy.
more holistic.
Exactly.
and
That's
more
the thing.
holistic.
You
And
can't.
I've been now more holistic than I think I've ever have. Like
Yeah.
just tuning in with me and the emotions.
Yeah, and knowing that energy
such a
always
beautiful thing.
exists, right? Her
Yes.
energy always exists.
Yeah.
you-
It's
and once
everywhere,
open
you know.
yourself up to it, you're like,
You're seeing it,
holy
you know.
fuck, there's,
Once you open
there it is
yourself up,
again.
you
Like,
could
Yeah.
be,
No,
you know,
exactly. I actually
psychic.
went and saw like a medium last
Ah.
week, and
Wow,
and,
that's fresh.
Tell us.
yeah, and so like so my mom, she recently lost her best friend. She was
Okay.
like an auntie to me.
Yeah.
And so the medium actually wasn't bringing her up, and then I brought her up, and I was like, is anything coming forth with her? Like I want to know, we miss her. She had like the most like beautiful energy, and she was like, oh yeah, like I'm like seeing her, like she's kind of like giving me a wave and everything. And then she was like, she wants me to let you know that she's sending your mom cardinals. And like,
Wow.
and then all of a sudden a cardinal starts singing. This like by the end of our session, a cardinal starts singing and doesn't stop, like honestly, until I leave. Like the cardinal just kept
Wow.
singing. And I go see my mom after, I'm like,
You just can't deny that.
you
right?
can't deny
Like,
that. I'm like,
Why
Mom,
would I make that shit up? Though seriously,
that's the thing. Like, why would I make it up? What would be
Yeah.
the purpose for that, right? And
Not-
so,
yeah, it's not giving me.
and it's like, don't we want to believe there's something bigger than us?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? And so I go and see my mom, like, is there anything with your best friend and cardinals? And she's like, yeah, like those were literally like her animals. She felt so connected to them. And she's like, this morning I literally turned on my little cardinal thing on my table because I was like, hey, well, maybe she'll like talk to me. And she's like, and then this cardinal was just going crazy all morning. And I was like, okay, well, she's been sending them to you, so now you know that's the message.
Yeah,
Such a
and then you
beautiful,
can
pure thing.
look and like be more aware. I love that.
And it's gorgeous, right? Because it's like she goes out in gardens and she mourns her best friend and she cries, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful and it's healing, and
love
it's like she lets herself feel it, and now she can kind of when she hears this bird, she's like, oh, that's her communicating with me. That's gorgeous to me. I love that.
And it's crazy because I've done a lot of like therapy and different try to help self things since losing Gwen, and a medium actually brought me the most closure.
Yeah.
And she said, some things aren't going to make sense, but they will eventually. And I'm noticing those some things. This was last December, and now I'm in such a different mind frame and a different or a different place in my life
Just
now.
like state of awareness,
even
though.
those, and she said the birds, they're your grandmother, and I was like, wow, and we recently had like these babies hatch in our front garden, and we watched them from like eggs to flying around now, and I was sitting out back with my mom having a coffee, and this fucking bird came up and just sat like right there with me, and I'm like, hey
what's
grandma,
up?
what's up?
Yeah,
but I'm just like, why else, like my dogs, spaniels, for like running around, and this bird's just here and like just looking at me. Okay, like, call it witchy, I don't give a fuck, but I'm not lying. You're like, this is weird shit. And it's only you if you put that breaker on, like, nope, nothing afterlife. Like, this is it. That's all. That's it.
How do you explain these moments, and that's the thing. And I feel bad for people that like won't let themselves, they won't let themselves like enjoy that and appreciate that and find comfort in it, because there's something there, Yes, exactly.
And that's, again, brought me so much comfort.
We're at an hour.
Oh yes,
we're at an hour.
Okay,
that's
5
why
hours.
We need
told Joe
5
Rogan.
more.
We told Joe.
But go ahead.
We told the Joes.
No, I was just gonna say, like, unless there's anything you like, how are you feeling? Do you want to keep going?
Part 2.
We can do part.
Do we want to part 2 it?
We can do it part 2. I don't know. I just wanted to ask you. I wanted to give you an opportunity to say.
I feel like there's a lot to cover.
I think that there is. Yeah, I'm down for part 2. I mean, I live 24 minutes away. Google Maps tells me.
Don't include this in the thing, maybe.
Yeah.
Cut this off. No, you're gonna leave it.
I feel like it's fine to leave.
Bossy.
Let's do part 2. But for now, because we talked about your book, I would love for you to share where your book's available, how people can get your book.
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's important.
And
you're also
I want to keep chatting.
Self-promotion, right? Like, I'm always like,
okay. Yeah. So it's like on Bookshop. It's on Amazon. It is Books on Main if you're local.
That's in Bath.
In Bath. It will be at Elena's. Right now, I'm waiting for it to be at Indigo, but it should be soon. But
and Yarker Library.
And Yarker Library, Napanee Library.
I called for Katie.
Because my kids go to daycare.
Your books have been taken out. 2 of them for the last few weeks.
I love that.
So we're on the waiting list.
They're at Belleville Library too.
Yeah. This is
Amazing.
so good.
They're at a lot of bookshops and bookstores in Picton.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're
good for you.
Oshawa Library. I'm constantly Googling where it is, and like a lot of bookstores have it.
Yes.
And any bookstore that like is your local,
Can you go on Amazon as well?
You can go on Amazon. Yeah, but any bookstore that's your local, you can go and request it, and they can order it in for you.
Amazing.
And any Indigo, you can go and order it
and order it in. Okay.
And that all helps me too, because it's like, people want to read this book, and so like,
let's support local, guys.
Let's support local.
And I'm telling everyone, we haven't even really made it through half of this page, so part 2 is coming.
I just look really quick and I'm like,
we have a lot more to go. How fun!
I love it though.
This is great.
I wanted you to also, because self-promotion, you talked really quickly about your band. You mentioned your fiance's band. But you didn't mention.
So I am not presently in a band right now.
I thought you were touring, but you're touring with your fiance.
I'm touring with my fiance. Yeah, so I'm doing like book tour, and I'm working merch for him, and then like yeah.
Amazing.
But it's like I'm still like songwriting solo and everything, which is
that.
Honestly nice.
Yeah. Less
Do what
pressure.
you want.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's way less pressure, and like some of my bandmates got a little anti-feminist.
We can maybe talk about that
over the
too.
pandy.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that you shared that. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you
and
for having me.
We'll book a part 2.
Part 2.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. Yay to us.
Cheers. Cheers far away.
Cheers, Liz.
Oh, actually,
channel.
oh my goodness, guys, I have an empowering. Where's the empowering quote?
Where's
my phone?
Bring me your quote. Okay, so guys, we actually started.
I gave you.
Your phone is on the. Your phone is on the. We actually started a really.
No one wants to change the world. That's suited to them. That's the quote for today. That fits.
That's a good quote.
Fits.
Thank you, Joey, keeping us in line. So,
what a shit show. We're usually much
love
better.
it. I love it.
Well, whatever. We are a shit show everyday life.
We're just getting a little bit more comfortable
so
every
what we
time.
wanted to start with our podcast is actually like throw in some fun games and stuff. We'll have to do one next time. And also an empowering
would you rather
quote. Katie, let me have my moment.
A tutu.
Katie, let me have my moment.
Mike's off.
But a quote that, what are you going to say? I'm getting ready.
Nothing.
No,
okay. A quote that would be like applicable right, for the podcast. So today it was like woman empowerment. So we said the strength of a woman is not measured by the impact that all her hardships in life have had on her. The strength of a woman is measured by the extent of her refusal to allow those hardships to dictate her and who she becomes. Joy Bell C.
I love that.
Love it. I didn't know
feel
you were
good.
going to read it. I thought it was just going to show up on the screen.
Oh,
But now I know. Now I know.
now we're reading it.
Share.
Okay, and guys,
subscribe.
please, please, please share, subscribe, like,
YouTube.
all of the above.
Spotify.
Yes.
Bar.
YouTube.
Another bar.
Spotify.
Club.
Apple Music. Let's go.